Hello once again from one of my favourite places to report on Hull City, the MKM Stadium car park. Ruben Selles, his first game in charge, so close to being the victory that we've all craved, the clean sheet that we've so longed for. And for 6 second half minutes, it looked like it might happen when Chris Beddier inadvertently turned in after 82 minutes to make it Hull City 1, Watford 0. But alas, their Achilles heel, that soft underbelly that we've seen so often this season, proved to be their undoing as Rocco Varta came off the bench to slide in and equalise 6 minutes later. So Beddier 82 minutes, Varta 88 minutes, and it finished 1-1. So look, I guess it kind of felt at the end a bit like a defeat for Hull City, given the fact they'd led, and deservedly so as well, because I thought they were very good in the second half. First half, nip and tuck, if anything, probably Watford were the better side in that first half, created probably the two better chances, although Ryan Longman inside 2 minutes should have done better. If you saw the game against Blackburn Rovers on Saturday, he had a carbon copy actually, kind of centre a goal. The ball came to him from the left, he sliced it wide. On Saturday, Abu Kamara prodded it towards goal and he was denied by a good block, although I felt he should have scored. Unfortunately today it was Kamara that fed Longman and he sliced it wide and there was nobody there to turn it in at the back post. That was probably the best chance that City had in that first half. If I'm honest, Watford just looked a better team. Technically, Watford looked sharper, quicker. City weren't bad in the first half by any stretch, but they looked like a team bottom of the table and in transition under a new manager. But the second half was a very different affair, and they did everything but score up until the 82nd minute. They had pressure, they kept winning the ball high in transition. Watford couldn't really get out of their own defensive third, and City were banging on the door. And again, it was just that obvious lack of quality in the final third, be it the final pass, the final decision, the final shot. It just let them down, as we've seen so many times. And then we've talked about it a lot this season, haven't we? The lack of luck that City have had at times. And unfortunately, Lady Luck was, I guess it's a lady, I don't know why we say Lady Luck, but we'll go with Lady Luck. Lady Luck was shining on them when sort of Malam's effort hit Beddier, and Beddier scored, and it went in the back of the net. We don't care how these shots go in. It did, and the roof came off the MKM Stadium, and kind of from then on they looked fairly in control. Watford weren't really posing that much of a threat, really. You know, City had a corner, a couple of moments after going 1-0 ahead, but ultimately their inability to stop a run down the right hand side, to stop a cross coming in the box and pick up a runner, it's proved their undoing, and they conceded a goal, and it was the proverbial balloon pop. You know, I think there were only 350 Watford fans in the MKM Stadium tonight, and you could barely hear them. Such was the quietness of the, just like I say, the atmosphere was completely punctured when that goal went in, and in the end, Watford were the ones that were pushing in. Again, I don't want to criticise referees, but I'm going to. There was some. Lee Doughty was the referee, and I thought Lee Doughty's a very good referee, but tonight I thought he was, in the first half, I just thought he was unnecessary with his whistle. There was a moment in the second half where City have broke. João Pedro's in his own half. Casey Palmer plays him through. First touch wasn't great from Pedro, but he bears down on goal from the right, and he shoots across Daniel Backman, and it's the goalkeeper very obviously turns it around the post. The linesman's on this near side, and we're above him, so we all see the goalkeeper clearly turn it behind for a corner, and he gives a goal kick. And then at the end, in the first half, there was only 1 minute added on, and we had a couple of stoppages. There was the situation where Casey Palmer and their number 10 came to blow. Well, they were pushing each other for a good few seconds. Erbil, the City goalkeeping coach, got booked in that. He gave 1 minute added time at the end. There were 4 or 5. I think there's got to have been at least 6 or 7 substitutions second half, and a few stoppages. And he's only put up 4 minutes at the end of the game. I know we had this directive at the start of last season about time being added on, and we had games where there was loads, we had games where there was none. It was all over the shop, as you expect from the EFL and PGMOL, they're all over the shop. Complete lack of consistency all over the case. And again, how's he getting 4 minutes? There had to be at least 5, probably 6 minutes. And yeah, in hindsight, probably the fact that it was 4 was probably a good thing for City, because Watford had scored. They were probably in the ascendancy as the final stages. So, but it's just frustrating, isn't it? It's that lack of consistency again. And I just, like I said, I thought Lee Doughty's performance tonight was just over officious at times and a bit needless at some of his decision making, and just too keen to blow that whistle. But anyway, I digress. I thought City played really well in the second half, and they did everything, as I said before, up to the 82nd minute. They did everything but score. They got the goal, and again, it's just that final bit, that final ability to block a cross or stop a shot that's let them down, and it stopped them from winning the game tonight. And it would have been the first win since, well, God knows what, end of September, the last win, first clean sheet since Millwall in August. And he would have got off to a winning start. And I just felt that they as much as Watford were the better team in the first half, I didn't think there was too much in it. Second half, there was a chasm of difference in City and Watford. And Watford, I think, will go away from this one tonight thinking we'll take that point. You know, they weren't great second half. They finished strongly, and you give them credit for that. Tom Cleverley was very critical of the pitch, sort of felt that the pitch played a part in Watford's inability to keep the ball second half. Again, I like Tom Cleverley, but I think that's a stretch. I think to blame the pitch, it wasn't that bad. You know, and City want to play football as well, let's not forget. So to blame the pitch for Watford keep giving the ball away, both teams were guilty of it first half, and it wasn't the pitch. It was just they weren't very good at keeping the ball. You know, the professional footballers paid an awful lot of money. I'm not convinced the pitch was the reason they kept giving the ball away, but you know, what do I know? He's a football manager. But I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. Again, it's not rocket science. My big worry, yeah, Charlie, look, you always say, don't you, when you score a goal, you're weakest. It was 6 minutes after they scored the goal, although probably in reality we'd only been playing for 3 or 4 of those. But they just make poor decisions in both boxes. They just lack quality defensively, and they lack quality offensively, and that's why they're bottom of the table. It's not, again, I said this on Saturday, you don't have to have a degree, and I think a lot of people in football, particularly managers, try and blind fans and people in the media with science and trying to make football overly complicated. It's a really simple game. Put the ball in the net at one end and keep it out at the other. And do basics like stop shots and crosses. And Charlie, I think they'll be going away tonight feeling frustrated, because this was a game they should have won. They deserved to win the game, and they've come away with only a point. But what I will say is, it's stopped the rot. You know, it's no longer 6 straight defeats. Yes, it's 12 games without a win, and that is there. But it's a point. They're only a point off safety. A win tonight would have taken them out the bottom 3. But like I say, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. I think that we know this group of players isn't at the level of last season. There isn't a Jayden Philogene. There isn't a Jacob Greaves. There's not a Tyler Morton. There isn't a Liam Delap. You know, Philogene and Delap and players like Greaves were big players for City, and there's a reason now they're playing in the Premier League. And City that isn't the City of this season, and they've obviously got a lot of players. Well, I say a lot of players out, but with all due respect, Liam Miller and Mohamed Baloumi are in that team tonight, and may very well have had they been in the team for the last couple of weeks, probably we're not looking down the barrel of 6 or 8 defeats and 11 games without a win before tonight. So that their absence is being felt. Who was it? Sorry, that just said about January. Just let me scroll back just 1 second. Stephen, yeah, January is going to be massive. It absolutely is going to be massive, and it may well define what happens. But I still think there's enough quality in that dressing room, even without Baloumi and Liam Miller, to get out of this and get up the table. They're better. The underlying stats do suggest that they're better than what 24th in the league suggests, and there's a million reasons as to why they are bottom of the table, but the fundamental, you can look at stats, and you can look at possession stats and chances created, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, if you're not putting the ball in the net and you can't keep it out at the other end, 1 clean sheet now in 20 games, so they've conceded a goal in 19 games of 20, tells its own story. That they were very close tonight to getting a clean sheet, so that is optimistic. And I just look, you guys know, and I've talked a lot about Ruben Selles over the last few months. I'm a big fan of him. I really, really like him. I think after 2 training sessions, there's a lot to be optimistic about in that performance. But he needs his players to turn up the quality, and he needs his players to, in those key moments, to find a better. You know, I like Ryan Giles. Yes, there's question marks over Gilo defensively, but offensively, we know on his day, he's one of the best left backs in the league. And at times tonight, I thought we saw more of the Ryan Giles that we saw at Middlesbrough, but too often his final pass was poor. He got himself into some really good positions down the left hand side, but the cross went to a Watford shirt instead of picking out a Hull City shirt. And there needs to be more bravery, I think, in that final third, more bravery from people on the ball, but off the ball as well. So, but I think that will come. Look, as I say, Ruben's had 2 training sessions, and then he's into a game. And I think against a side that have scored a lot of goals this season, are knocking on the door of the top 6, who admittedly aren't great away from home this season, have been very, very good at Vicarage Road, but not so good away. I still think it's a step in the right direction. It could have been a lot more, and I think if we'd have won the game 1-0, we'd have all come away absolutely buzzing with a clean sheet, first win for in God knows how long, and everything would have been looked a lot better going to Coventry in the early kick-off on Saturday lunchtime. But I think we shouldn't let that late goal take away from the fact that there's an awful lot to be optimistic about. But ultimately, they've still got to start winning games. I did ask Ruben. He said to me yesterday that he wants very quickly to see a team in the Ruben Selles mould. And I said to him tonight, did you feel that you got that so quickly? And he said, yeah. And I would concur that in that, particularly in that second half performance, that we saw a lot about what he wants to see from his team. You know, a lot less faffing around at the back, a willingness to get it forward quickly, and play off second balls, but also be aggressive against opposition. I think too often this season City have been too nice. Against opposition, they've not. You know, when you look at the foul count, I'm not saying that City should go out and, you know, register 25 fouls in a game, but get closer to the optimistic. Get closer to the opposition. Don't be so respectful of who they're playing. Get closer to them. You know, let them know they're in a game. Don't allow them to. Don't sit off them. Allow them to, because there'll be teams in this league that if you sit off them, they will pick you off and they will punish you. Leeds, Sheffield United are 2 examples. Burnley are another one. Obviously, I know we drew here with Burnley, but against the better teams, if you allow them space and time, they will pass around you. And City need to, with players like Pedro, who can be aggressive, and Regan Slater and Casey Palmer and Alzate was in for the first time from the start tonight, and I thought he grew into the game as it wore on, before obviously having to come off because he's not played. You know, he's still feeling his way back from having not played in pre-season and then getting the setback of his calf injury, you know, after arriving. Yeah, Luke, I agree. Yeah. That's the phrase, isn't it? Unnecessary faffing. There were a couple of times in the game where they went back to the goalkeeper and it caused them a problem or two. But they don't need to be fanning around with it at the back. There's no need for that. They don't need to be doing that. They're not good enough to do that. So why do it? And yeah, you know, it was really interesting tonight to see Ivo Pandor was largely a spectator, because he didn't really have too much to do. You know, a couple of Watford chances. You know, there's the Raspin shot first half that angled over. Sorry, second half that angled over the crossbar early on, but he didn't have a huge amount, and he wasn't involved. You know, you think back to some of the games this season, Panda and Jones and Hughes, they must have had 1,000 touches each. That's a marked difference from where we're at. And I just, yeah, Callum, I think with the press as well, and that's something that Ruben is hot on, is the press. He wants energy in his team. He wants his team to close down, and it worked, because they forced Watford. I know cleverly, as I said before, was moaning about the pitch, but garbage. City were pressing Watford and they were making errors from it. Now what they've got to do going forward is they've got to, when they win that ball so many times in and around the opposition penalty area, they've got to make the most of it. They've got to pick the right pass and be brave with the pass. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading Patrick's comment. I'll come to that in a second, Patrick. Yeah, they were really aggressive in the press, and I really like that. But when you win the ball high up, you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. You've got to fashion something from it. You've got to fashion a shot on target, or ideally a goal. But like I say, you know, without wishing to labour the point, you've got to be I think based on the second half and the way the game went against a team that are pushing top six, and where City are and what's gone before, I think there's a lot to like about the new manager. And I think I'm optimistic, but the challenge now is to go to Coventry and build on it again. If they go to Coventry and lose, this performance doesn't really count for a huge amount, and we're probably back to square one. They've got to keep building on it. I think they've got some good fixtures coming up. Some very winnable fixtures, and I think Coventry is one of. They've obviously been beaten tonight. They're not going great. Frank Lampard, yeah, we'll see how that one works out. But Coventry away is always a really difficult game. Of course it is. Coventry historically in the last couple of years have been good at home, but City, Coventry aren't in great form. City, I think, will be buoyed by the new manager and the way they've played in that second half. Yeah, James, I think if you look at the stats tonight, I mean, I've not seen, admittedly, I've come straight from reporting on the game to doing the post-match media, so I've only seen I've only seen, it's late and I'm tired, the very basic stats. I've not seen the individual stats, but what I can say is I think that City had something like 42 or 44% possession, which is a marked downgrade from where we've been before. But although they had less possession in the second half, it didn't feel like that, if I'm honest. It didn't feel like they had less possession. I would agree, first off, they probably did. Watford probably shaded it, and that was reflective of 56-44 or whatever it was in the first half. But second half, it felt like City had much more of it. But yeah, I think the players, they certainly, faffed around less at the back. Who was it that spoke about Ryan Longman? Just 1 second. Patrick, yeah. Look, I think it's difficult for Ryan. His pre-season was impacted by the speculation about him leaving. We all thought he would move on. He then he did his shoulder, funny enough, against Serge's Reading team at the SCR Stadium. He's come back. There's a lot of pressure on him now. There's a lot of expectation. We thought that it would be Liam Miller and Bellumi. It's not anymore. It's now Kamara and Longman. He's a trier. You can't fault his work ethic, but I kind of felt that his performance was summed up probably in the second half. He did fantastically well to win the ball on the edge of the box, or just inside the box, I can't remember, on the left-hand side, and he won the ball. He got in a good area. He turned and he looked to try and fashion the angle to bend it from left to right, and he sort of got it all wrong, and he ended up shooting thin air, and that kind of summed up Ryan's night. I think there was obviously the chance in the first couple of minutes where Kamara's played him in, and he just needs to hit it straight, hit straight contact, and he's in the end he's opened his body up too much, and he shanked it wide of the Ryan post. And there's moments with Ryan, and I think he's a confidence player. Him and Kamara, work really hard. You can't fault the work ethic, but they just need confidence, and they just need, and ultimately, quality. And we'll find out in the coming weeks. I think Kamara is a player that he's only 21. He's had a rough time since he came to the club. It's not gone well for him. But he, on his ability, our hopes lie really, because obviously, as I said before, it's going to be him and Ryan Longman. Interesting to see Will Jarvis back on the bench. I think he's a player that under Sayers will be given a chance. Abdouche is a player that for me that needs to step up and come to the party. He's got obvious quality on the ball. We haven't seen it this season at all. In all since he came to the club last January, I think Abdouche has got 3 assists and scored a goal. And for a player in that part of the pitch, they're bad stats. So he's got to come to the party. And really, with the quality he's got, he should be in that starting 11. So he's got to step up. Callum Kamara, it's no coincidence to see him playing better on the right hand side, and the right hand side is Kamara's favoured position. But obviously, for whatever reason, he was played out on the left under the previous manager. James Harry Vaughan, not at this stage, no. But he keeps turning on performances for the under 21s. And I would suspect players like Harry Vaughan, Tyrell Sellers-Fleming, Nathan Tinsdale, Sincere Hall, those sort of players that were involved in pre-season, they're going to be training with the first team at times, and they'll be given a chance. And ultimately, if Chris Beddier, João Pedro, Mason Burstow don't score goals, and Fleming keeps banging them in for the 21s as he keeps doing, he's going to be given a chance. And ultimately, if he's given a chance in training to impress, they've got to take it, and then they might be involved on a match day. This team doesn't score goals, and even tonight, you know, you're scratching around trying to get a goal, only one. You know, they've got to find a way of getting more goals in the team and giving them some breathing space. So if that needs to come from Selles Fleming, then great. But I think like I say, I do think there's enough quality in that dressing room to be better than 24th. I'm not saying they should be pushing the top 6, because I don't believe that is a top 6 team. You know, even if the Championship is probably its weakest but most competitive, if that makes sense. You haven't got the quality of last season. You haven't got the quality of a Southampton, a Leicester, or an Ipswich. But you know, I think it's more even this season. But I still think that team's a long way off. But you never know. You just never know in this league if teams and players get momentum and get confidence and get on a run. Funny things can happen, and teams that, you know, teams with less quality than City have gone on better runs and have finished higher up the table. So you just never know. And as you know, as we come into January, and I've said this before, my big worry about January is attracting the right type of players. What you don't want to be doing is, when you're bottom of the table or you're bottom 4 or 5 in the league and you're struggling to attract players, the only way you can get those players is by paying over the odds, or they come for the wrong reasons. They come because you're paying more than the team further up the table. That is my worry. It was easy last January to attract bigger players, better players, because they were challenging for a place in the Premier League. So of course the likes of Carvalho were keen to come. That necessarily isn't going to be the case this January. So that's the battle they face, and it's about getting the right players that can come in and complement the dressing room, and not just come for a big fat payday. Because we know City do pay good money. We've seen it with Ozan Tufan. We've seen it with Mika Seri. They pay good money, and if they're going to attract players, it's got to be for the right reason. So that is their challenge. But for me, there's still more than enough in that dressing room to get out of this mess. As I say, I'm not suggesting they're going to go and win 10 games and get promotion. That's not what I'm saying. But I think with a manager that's got an acumen of organisation, that can get a team playing to its strength, I think they will start to get some results and start to move up that table. So look, it wasn't to be tonight, but I think we can all come away from the ground tonight feeling better about ourselves. We can feel that, you know, it's not another defeat. You know, we know that home form has been crap this year. I think that's 3 wins in 23 now here. But I just feel a bit better about things than I perhaps did, you know, a week ago. So look, that's probably it from here at the MKM Stadium. Thank you for watching. We will have, if you've not listened to the podcast from last night's press conference, it is available from wherever you get your podcast from. We will be doing a post-match review on Friday morning, so keep an eye out for that. That'll be out before lunchtime on Friday, before I'm back at the training ground to speak to Ruben ahead of Coventry. And of course, we'll be down at Coventry on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff, to see what that brings us. His first away game in charge. So look, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate, I know it's late, it's what, 11:30, 25 to 12. Good support tonight. Second half was brilliant. Atmosphere was great. Lee, Callum, thank you. Safe trip if you are going down to Coventry on Saturday. Hopefully the players can get us all a result, and we will move forward up the Tigers.